Hi, I'm Takunda Matose. I am an assistant professor. My primary appointment is at Cincinnati Children's Hospital and also the College of Medicine. I'm trained specifically as a political philosopher, so thinking specifically about theories of justice. What I try to do is to apply the analytic tools of philosophy and the kind of conceptual apparatuses of philosophy to the healthcare context, especially as someone who works primarily in a hospital. My research is at the intersection of bioethics, political philosophy, and then philosophy of phrase. I'll give you an example that's actually related to the way that those three areas intersect, right? So bioethics, political philosophy, and philosophy of race. I'll preface this as also a plug that I'm currently working on a book project that touches on this subject. The primary question I'm interested in looking at is how we can bring about a more just system when it comes to pregnancy related health outcomes. So, just the teaser is when it comes to pregnancy, one of the interesting problems that we have is that people who are racialized as Black, not only do they generally have worse pregnancy related health outcomes than people that are racialized in other ways, but in most kinds of health conditions, once we correct for socioeconomic status, most health disparities disappear. But part of what's interesting in pregnancy is that people who are racialized as Black in the highest socioeconomic strata have worse pregnancy related health outcomes than people racialized as white in the lowest socioeconomic strata. Again, this is sort of like a confounding kind of phenomenon. And so part of what I'm interested in is, as a matter of justice, how do we bring a kind of equity, particularly for institutions that are supposed to serve everyone in an equitable way? And then how do we also do it while attending to sort of the sociocultural factors that are bringing about disparities that are also racialized? So thinking about, you know, that justice component, thinking about it within healthcare, but then also thinking about how it intersects with other sociocultural phenomena. As I mentioned earlier, I am primarily situated within a hospital. I think you guys got to walk around a little bit. So we are here on the medical side of things. Regularly, I go across the street to the clinical setting, but we also have biomedical research. The College of Medicine is also there. And so a lot of my philosophical work, I focus, yes, on the kind of theoretical, conceptual, normative aspects, but I think it's really important to for it to be informed by what's happening across the street. What are the clinical implications? What are the clinical considerations? But then also thinking about sort of what's actually practicable. So my focus in the work that I do is ultimately about having tangible improvements in health. And so that's one way in which I would say there's a direct connection that's beyond all the philosophical or theoretical work I do. One of the things that I've found is there is great collaboration with people in different departments. So there's access to lots of really interesting things that are happening. Again, my primary appointment is in the School of Medicine, but that doesn't prevent me from engaging with people in arts and sciences. Or, for example, last night I was talking to some of the AI people in the School of Business, right? And they're thinking about questions in healthcare. And so the department is interestingly situated in a way that there are all these connections with other people that are really important, especially for someone who does bioethics, which is as a discipline is already fairly interdisciplinary and relies on those kinds of connections. But I'll say the other thing that I've really enjoyed about this department in particular, and for better or worse, I've now been in different philosophy departments or, associated with different philosophy departments around the country at different institutions. And I would say there is a nice collegiality in this department. Um, the fact that there are all sorts of department functions, both at people's homes or, the zoo function, which I wasn't able to attend, but I know happened and I would have loved to attend. But just the mere fact that those opportunities exist is actually something that's fairly rare. And people in the department seem collegial in a really nice way. One is a class I actually took here at University of Cincinnati. So I did my undergraduate studies here and I took a class with Kofi Maglo. It was a bioethics course, which was the first time that I had the opportunity to sort of engage with scholarship at that intersection between issues of medicine and issues of race. So that was a very foundational course for me. And it's led to me being in this situation, working on the kinds of things I work on. So that's one course. The other course I'll mention is a grad course I took with, see, now I'm thinking of another course that maybe I should mention. So I'll mention two other ones briefly. One is a course I took with Rod Tallis, who actually ended up being my dissertation director, and it was on democratic theory and the egalitarian notions, right? So this debate between distributive egalitarians and relational egalitarians. And that course I'm mentioning because one, that's where my sort of political philosophy training and my work in political philosophy is very much situated. So it ended up being foundational in that sense. But I also got introduced to the work of Karina Furi through that course. And, I was a grad student, but I've since gotten to know her and she's one of my mentors. So that was a very important course. And I'll mention my final course that I really enjoyed taking as a graduate student, which is less directly related to what I work on, but just a course that I really enjoyed, which was a course on racial aesthetics with Paul Taylor. We read Black is Beautiful. We read lots of other really important aesthetics books and works in aesthetics that I just enjoyed as a course. In some regards, I'm unique in that before I did my PhD, I actually spent 7 years working at the National Institutes of Health as a health policy analyst, and I did human subjects protection, regulatory policy in that world. And it was work that I very much enjoyed. It's work that I thought I would actually be doing for the rest of my life at a certain point. And even when I went to get my PhD, I still thought I'll do the PhD. And then once I have my PhD, I'll end up back there. And so that's not how it's turned out. And I'm very happy and grateful with the path I've taken. But that is probably the thing I would have done or would be doing if I wasn't doing specifically what I'm doing is just working in biomedical research in another, it's much more like hands-on perspective. Even though I just mentioned that I really enjoyed working at, the NIH and doing the biomedical research, I did have a moment right before I started my PhD where I was kind of burned out. So I was in the Washington, D.C. area. And the thing that, about just like working in that kind of context, it really it's exhausting, right? It's a grind. And so I had moved to Baltimore and I was commuting to work, but I was getting ready to actually leave that job and become a full-time musician. And so if I was not doing either that job or what I'm doing now, I might have turned out to be a musician. And yeah, not like a pop star or anything like that. Like, but a very much kind of like, underground sort of moving by, the skin of my teeth, kind of like very earthy music. That's what I would be doing. I like writing music. I like playing guitar. I like listening to music, buying records. But apart from that, I will say I've got two English pointers. They're very lovely dogs. I got them while I was in grad school in Tennessee. And one of the things they got me into is hiking a lot. So, me and my wife, we enjoy going on hikes. Cincinnati has a surprising number of trails that I really enjoy, but also close by, we've talked about Red River Gorge. So, there's some nice trails down there. And I like just getting the opportunity to be outside. I can think, but in a different sort of way than when I'm reading or when I'm in the office.